Today we're going to learn about Punnett squares. A Punnett square is a graphic used to predict the possible genotypes of an offspring in a given cross. Each parent has two alleles for a particular gene. An offspring receives one allele from each parent. A Punnett square shows all the possible allele combinations in the offspring. So there are two different kinds of alleles that we can have, dominant or recessive. If the alleles are dominant, then they're going to be expressed. They're going to cover up any recessive genes. For the recessive allele to be expressed, we're going to need two of those recessive alleles, because then they can't be covered up by the dominant because there isn't one. But if a dominant is present, then it's going to be the one that shows up physically. Okay, so our next word is genotype. Genotype is the genetic makeup of the organism. So this is what's on the inside. This is the alleles I was just talking about. They are written as letters whenever we are doing Punnett squares. Phenotype is what the organism's actually going to look like on the outside. This is the physical appearance of what the organism is. So we're going to get started. There are two types of combinations that we can have. We can either have homozygous alleles, or we can have heterozygous. Homozygous means that they're the same. So there's going to be two dominants or two recessives. And then heterozygous is going to show us one dominant and one recessive because they're different. Okay, so for our example, we're going to use puppies. We're going to say that each one of our parents is heterozygous for black fur. Black is going to be the dominant over white. We're going to represent black in our Punnett square as a capital B. Because each parent is heterozygous, they're each going to have a dominant and then a recessive. And same for the other parent. For my explanation here, illustration, I'm going to have 4 different colors to represent the letters so that when we put the letters down here, you can see where they are coming from. But as you can see, both parents are heterozygous. They each have a dominant and a recessive. It does not matter which one is the mom and which one's the dad. It just matters that you have the correct genotypes. So the genotypes, once again, are the letters represented there. Okay, for the Punnett squares, we do one box at a time. So we're going to start with this box. I can use the top or I can use this side. It doesn't matter which one I do first. I'm going to go ahead and do the top and bring it down into the box. The next thing I'm going to do is do the B over here. I'm going to bring it over. So as you can see, this box right here, they're both uppercase. That means that they're both dominant alleles. This is a homozygous dominant offspring. Our next one we're going to use, here's a lowercase b and then an uppercase B for this box. It does matter which one that you put first, but it doesn't matter which one you do first. Dominants are always written first. They are expressed first because they dominate over the recessive allele. So we have our our recessive here. We're going to bring our dominant over. So this offspring, it has a dominant and a recessive, so it's going to be heterozygous because it's different alleles. Our next box, we're going to bring this dominant allele down here and then bring this one over here. This is just the same like this one. It's heterozygous. It has a dominant and a recessive allele. Our next one is going to be both recessive alleles. This means, since they are the same, they're both recessive, it's homozygous recessive, whereas this one was homozygous dominant. Okay, the next thing you need to do is to put it into ratios or percentages on what the offspring is going to look like. As you can see in our boxes, our crosses here, we're only going to have one homozygous dominant. So we'll write we will write it like this, capital B, capital B. There's only going to be one of those, and so it's 25%. Our next one, we have two boxes that are like this, that they're both capital B, lowercase b. So it's heterozygous, so that's 50%. That's going to be like that for genotypes. Our next one is this. It is homozygous recessive, so it's going to be written like this. As you can see, our percentages add up to 100%. So the offspring of these two particular genotype parents is going to have a more likely chance to be heterozygous, so have one dominant and one recessive. Another way that you can do this is for genotype. We can also do it for phenotype. As we can see that this one, it has both dominant alleles, so it's going to be represented by black fur. These ones have one dominant allele, so it's also going to be expressed as black fur. And then our last box is the recessives, so it's going to be represented by white fur. If we wanted to do this in percentages, we would have 75% chance of the offspring being black, and then only a 25% chance of the offspring being white. That's all for our lesson today on Punnett squares. Thank you.